can we expect out of a Mnuchin Treasury over the next few weeks, and then a Janet Yellen Treasury starting January 12th, starting whenever she's confirmed?
So I think we are going to see the debate play out, which you were just highlighting, and that is where will the stimulus come from? Is it going to be just those unused funds, which, $455 billion, that is the equity piece. There is no reason that the Federal Reserve could not leverage that through Main Street lending or other programs. So we could be talking about potentially trillions, but I just don't see it as either or. That money could be available. There could also be additional stimulus money. And, I think somebody mentioned earlier, the battle lines may be drawn. It's really time to put down the weapons, I would say, and get into negotiations, because we've got a significant problem. And it was just commented about a few moments ago. The labor markets are not strong. Who knows for the next few months how COVID-19 is going to wreak havoc potentially on the economy even further. So not drawing the battle lines, but getting in and negotiating as quickly as possible. And hopefully that would occur whether the Treasury Secretary is Secretary Mnuchin or incoming Secretary Yellen.
Rodge, you had mentioned that some of this comes from the Fed, but some of this comes from the Treasury. How is this crisis fundamentally changing the relationship between the two bodies?
I don't think there is a fundamental change. Each is an independent agency. Each has its own views. And there is frequently disagreement on some aspects. But I think in the longer run, if you look at what I think was the extraordinary degree of cooperation in the spring when the markets and the economy were most at risk, this has really been the trend. If you go back to 2008, where Secretary Paulson and Fed Chairman Bernanke, same degree of cooperation. So yes, there is disagreement now, but over the longer term, I think one would want to conclude that there was substantial cooperation and collaboration between those two agencies.
Rodge, good morning. It's Guy in London. I look at what is happening in the U.S. economy right now, and I see an incredibly high savings rate. I see the consumer in the States willing to spend. That was my takeaway from the Black Friday event. Why do we need more stimulus when there is this huge pool of money in the consumer's pocket that is probably going to be spent next year and unleashed on the U.S. economy, that has the potential to drive the U.S. economy really to bounce back quite strongly?
So it's a great question, and I think the answer has to be the unevenness of the available spending power. Yes, there are a large number of consumers and others who have that spending power, but there is a large number, an increasingly large number of individuals and small businesses who do not have that power. And it is really a question of getting the money, helping these people survive, helping these small businesses survive. So the stimulus would necessarily, to be effective, in my view, need to be directed to those individuals and those businesses. This has been a very uneven recovery from the depths of COVID-19. And as we have a threat of going downhill again on the economy, it will be uneven once more.
Rodge, if we broaden it out to sort of what we're going to expect in a Biden administration, front and center is what's going to happen to financial regulation in all kinds of forms, from the fiduciary rule to how ETFs are structured, to banking enforcement, to corporate governance, to sustainability. What do you feel like is the top priority, and what realistically do you think we're going to see?
So I don't think the focus will be, at least initially, on safety and soundness. Based on banks' performance since the beginning of this year, there do not seem to be significant weaknesses there. So I assume the priorities, at least immediately, will be those which are the overall administration priorities, and how does banking regulation fit into that? So we start with the impact of COVID-19 on the economy as a whole. A second would be racial and social injustice. How can we bring more people into the banking system? And for those who are underbanked, how can we make them more fully banked? And the third, and you pointed it out, is climate change. There will clearly be focus on disclosure by banking institutions, all financial institutions, because they play a dual role. They not only have their carbon footprint, as every company does, but they are also a determiner of who obtains loans, who obtains investments, and what criteria are to be applied. So I see those three administration priorities as working their way into the regulation of the banking system.
What is the simplest way to get that done, Rodge? If you look at a lot of Biden's economic picks, there are a lot of people who are focused on race, on gender equality. Is it as simple as focusing on the Community Reinvestment Act? Are there going to be greater regulatory demands on banks to increase their numbers inside of their firms? How does a new administration get this done?
Yeah, Alex, I think those are all the right notes, and I would say all the above. So to try and be specific, the Community Reinvestment Act has managed to develop a total consensus that it needs to be improved. It's an old statute. It was built on an old framework of bank delivery of products and services, and it needs to be revamped. And all three agencies have their ideas, but they need to be coordinated. With respect to the unbanked and underbanked, there I think we need to get the agencies and the banks together. I think all of them want to do more. It's in the country's interest. And the underbanked and unbanked does split to a far too great extent on racial lines. And if all races, all creeds, all colors have access to the banking system equally, we're going to have a better banking system and really a greater country. So I think there will be focus there. But so much of this will be disclosure. Companies being obligated to make improved disclosure on climate and on gender and racial equality.
Rodge, I get the privilege of asking the last question. So here it is. We've got Bitcoin at a record high, equity markets at a record high, credit at record tights. How worried do you think that both the administration and the Fed going forward are going to be about financial stability? And if they aren't going to tackle the challenge of financial stability, given what is happening with some of these asset classes, how do you think they go about it?
Yeah, I think they probably are worried and should be worried. They should be in the business. Any administration should be in the business of worrying, particularly about some of these asset classes. And my own view is it is time to revitalize the Financial Stability Oversight Council. That is their responsibility. It was developed in response to 2008, 2009, and it shouldn't just be cleaning up after the fact. It should be anticipating what cracks could develop. So I think a revitalization of the FSOC would be a very helpful step.